synergies. His approach sets new standards for the industrial performance through computations and cognitions working together. His work is redefining industrial efficiency through intelligent industrial AI, real time insights, and operator assistance, creating the transformative impact on shop floors. And in one line, I will tell you when people were talking about there is a probability, possibility of AI, and that time Sarang Kamalakar sir was building the AI through Humac AI. Means that is the early revolution what the parenthesis system has brought. It's the commendable in the AI industry. So we are the witness of the so far journey. Somehow not so long for, but we are watching this from last 4 and 5 years. So welcome Sarang sir on this forum, and over to you. You can brief about yourself. Might be something we may have missed and your intention to this program. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, Vasanti. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. You've already, shared a lot of things. So I don't want to add anything, in that context, but I'm very happy, to share what I'm learning day by day. And I would be happy to share my perspectives. Just to give you a little summary, we are actually living in a very exciting time. I mean, it's a phenomenal time to be alive, from a technology perspective, from overall human evolution's perspective. And there are so many things which are happening, right? So it's a very vibrant atmosphere out there. Uh, and while we build our careers and things like that, right? While we build the systems, while we proceed further in terms of our journeys in technology, it's very exciting to kind of share the thought processes with young people who are stepping there. I would say stepping into the first step into the careers, right? So at times this also gives a phenomenal energy back to me. I mean, I have got a lot of freshers that I work with. I've got some interns that I'm working with, and the kind of energy that these guys have is amazing. I mean, it's very palpable. That's something which actually gives me energy to think, newer ideas, newer aspects. So yeah, I would be happy to have conversation and share my thought processes in terms of what are the things that are going to be evolving in the near future, and this is completely my perspective. So yeah.
Yes, actually. Thank you. So let's start with AI. You just simplify the AI for the students and help us to leave the fear of AI. So how is the AI is moving ahead? Can you simplify the AI terms or AI concept which is evolving over the period now?
So instead of looking at AI as a concept, right? Let's try and understand what do you mean by intelligence, right? And this is my definition or my understanding of what an intelligence is, right? And intelligence for anybody, I mean, we've got same biologically same brains, right? Uh, Similar number of neurons that everybody possesses, similar kind of scenarios that are there. I mean, in terms of the liquid, the entire structure remains more or less same, right? In all the human species, right? But what differentiates us is the intelligence. And when I would love to emphasize over here is in intelligence for a human being is nothing but ability to take out inference from any particular given scenario, right? As simple as that. I mean, you have looked at a very different scenarios in life. Your experiences have been very different, coming from diverse backgrounds. So am I. So everybody over here, right? So even if we are looking at one particular situation scenario, all, let's say, 40, 50 people over here would have a different perspective on each of on that particular aspects, right? And that perspective is nothing but how are we inferring or how are we drawing out our inferences from that scenario, right? And that's what differentiates us. So if you ask me how and what's do we need to be fearful about AI? The answer is absolutely not. I mean, one thing that is definitely happening is the compute is getting reduced over a period of time, right? I mean, earlier, let's say, for example, software programmer used to be like the most rewarded, awarded job, right? But when now AI is replacing that, what do we need to look at, right? And that's the fear which you're talking about, right? Where everybody would have fear in terms of whether AI will replace the jobs. Yeah, I mean, some of the jobs or many of the jobs will get replaced. But one thing which will not be replaceable is the way human processes the information, what are the inferences that we draw out, because it's a very different cognitive system that is sitting in. So how can we draw these particular inferences to build better systems, to build better processes, better practices, better technological advancement is something that will always be there in our hands, right? As humans, right? So I would say that it's not human against AI. It's human with AI. I mean, there is a coherence that we need to build, and that coherence will only be able to we'll only be able to build that once we start looking at different aspects, right? And sometimes it is very important for us to look at the compute aspect of it and a cognition aspect of it. So if the compute is being done by, let's say, AI or any tools that are coming into picture, we should be focusing more and more on cognition, and that's what would make a brilliant ecosystem, which is human and AI together.
Great, great. So, as I mentioned, this Internscope is the ecosystem for the early stage career. Here, the students are joining from the academic internship or as an early stage career into 0 to 3 years. Somehow, there are female women crowd who are looking for the break after a break and restart their career. So, what are the key skills these students should develop for careers in AI or in deep tech to get jail up with these current trends? Yeah, okay.
So
So,
what's
whatever they
happening?
have learned in their
Yeah.
academics, that was the different. But from last 18 months, whatever is going on, so that is the different trend here. So, you just
Yeah.
guide us. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something which is we need to be very careful about. See what's happening, and this is what I get to see when I interact with students, right? Uh, uh, it's there are at times people do courses just to post it on LinkedIn, right? So that I can flaunt my certifications on LinkedIn and people clap about it. I receive some likes and things like that, right? But as a student, I definitely would need to look at that whether am I adding any depth into the knowledge that I'm gaining, right? And that's one very critical aspect I see missing, right? It's not about horizontal development that we end up doing, right? It's always about the kind of knowledge that we look at, going deeper into that particular stream of things, right? I mean, I know there are a lot of people who are now working on, or rather trying to build something around agentic AI and things like that, right? But they get, and I get disappointed when I see a student talking about that, there's a particular, let's say, framework which is not allowing me to do XYZ things, right? It's just a framework. I mean, you can build your own framework. Who's stopping you to do that? But that mindset of being confined to the boundaries and then learning only the superficial element is something that needs to be definitely worked upon. I mean, my recommendation is always and would always be that, okay, it doesn't matter, whether you know 10,000 things or not. If you know, let's say, 10 things, but if you know those 10 things in depth, then you will definitely have some amazing aspect. The second aspect from a skills perspective, Vasanti, and thanks to AI, right? We don't have any let's say demographic dominance, right? Earlier it used to be like, Pune is a tier one city, so you will get talent in Pune, Mumbai, these kind of cities, right? It's diminishing, right? The AI, GPT, and all the tools that we talk about, right, is available in tier two, tier three, tier four, even in villages, right? So for somebody to build the skills and knowledge is now available. It is democratized to a great extent, right? And I think that this is the biggest advantage that we talk about, or we can talk about. But at the same time, when we talk about this demographic dominance, being eradicated, there needs to be a system thinking that needs to come into the picture, right? So student would always need to think that, okay, what should I do to build a career into AI, right? Not what are the courses that I can, take which will get me into a particular placement company, right? So that's a very different thought process that we need to think about, right? Do I want to build a career, or do I want just an entry level opportunity into a company, right? Because at times we are so get biased by, if I get an entry into a, let's say, a multinational company or a better brand, I would be able to build a career out of it. And answer is no, actually. We are entering into an age wherein, unless and until you have got core metal in you as a person, no company is going to be hiring you, or no company is going to be retaining you, right? So the rate of obsolete skills, or professionals becoming obsolete, would increase dramatically as we proceed over here. So for me, it's, if we look at it at this point of time, it's always going to be a fight for relevance, right? It's not going to be a survival of the fittest, but it is survival of the most relevant, who understands the technology, who understands the subject matter, and who has got depth in terms of what the thought processes that they possess, right? Anybody who's just a superficial knowledge would be obsolete very soon, very fast, replaced by AI.
True, true, true. And actually, it is great learning to having the right approach and deep learning with the perspective. That right perspective is important. So, when what type of the projects students should prefer or they should build in their academics or internship career? So, means it will get some clue for them to get.
Yeah. I will probably, I may not give you a famous answer, but yeah, this answer is very direct from the heart, right? At this
Hmm,
point of time, if you ask me what is the internship aspirations of the student,
hmm,
the three aspects, right? They are looking out for stipend
hmm.
to get into that internship. Second is they're looking at the brand that they are getting to work with. And very third is, probably they will look at what is the project that they are getting into.
Actually,
They don't look at the fourth thing, and which is most important, is what is it that I'm going to get learning out of, right? And I've seen student, or rather I've interviewed student who have done internships in multiple companies. Unfortunately, they did not get to learn any damn thing about the projects that they were doing, and as a result of that, even if they had a title of, let's say, an AI intern, AI engineering intern, their knowledge in terms of AI is was not that great, right? So the order should be reversed, if you ask me. At this point of time, I mean, if I look at it from the student's perspective, right, at an entry level, you are the most, I would say, the de-risked point. There's no risk at all, so that is the time where you should experiment with the careers, with the approach that we look at the project, rather than looking at whether am I getting stipend or not. You should be looking at what are the stack that I would be able to learn, or what are the things that I'm able to learn, what is the depth that is going to be working on. And also, Vasanti, what is happening is, there's on a company side also, right, there is a crazy amount of rat race which goes on, right? That what is the pace at which we are kind of iterating the products and things like that. Sometimes that also creates a different scenario wherein they give dummy projects to the students, They do experimentations with these particular projects. So end of the day, students may not get to learn anything, and for the companies, they will only dump these particular initiatives that they have taken, right? So that's also one of the things which students should definitely understand, identify that. I'll give you a very interesting story, right? In last year I was in the US, and I met somebody who did an internship with Google. And I met him over a coffee, and we were having a conversation. And he said, "I have looked at your profile, your company, and something which is very fascinating, and I would love to, kind of do an internship with your company as well." I said, what's wrong with you? I mean, in terms of, when you are working already, be doing an internship with Google. So there are two things which are there, right? Either you are very pathetic in terms of the skill, so that you know that the Google is not going to be, continuing you as an employee and things like that. That's one. Or second is you are extremely inquisitive. When you are working in Google, you are also, trying to understand the different aspects which are being built, right? So I said, what is the true scenario? And when he started, sharing his perspectives, I started realizing that this is a very inquisitive person. He is trying to understand so many aspects. He's trying to understand, build. So that's something which I would always recommend, students, at any given point of time, give more preference or importance to building things, creating newer systems, opportunity to get to learn how the systems are being built, right? And that's where the system thinking would come into picture. uh, if somebody is just giving you, you know uh, learn this, do this, and your internship would be over and your certificate would be done. And as a result of that, here's the stipend. Avoid those jobs. I mean, that's not going to give you a long-term mileage in terms of, the way we're looking at AI, right?
So, as we spoke about AI, but beside the technical skills in the AI world, what human skill will become more valuable in future?
Curiosity. Curiosity is one of the most important skill. I mean, people should. I mean, there are very few curious people that I'm getting to meet these days, right? And the reason is every time you ask a question, they'll open a mobile phone, they will have a GPT, they'll understand, or rather, they'll outsource the thinking to GPT. And when the GPT thinks, and then that's the answer you'll end up getting, right? So, if that thinking, the more the outsourcing of that thinking happens, the more problems that students are going to be facing, right? So I would say curiosity is one of the most interesting aspect. Second is enthusiasm, right? I mean, I've seen. I don't see a lot of enthusiastic people, right, these days, because of so many factors, right? Look at the kind of resources. You're talking about, people from Jalna and things like that. I myself come from a tier two city or tier three city, actually. When I landed in Pune, there was a very different scenario, right? So the kind of cultural difference and things like that you bring in. My entire education has been in Marathi school. So the kind of transformation that you have to do, is it doesn't happen unless and until you are curious, you are enthusiastic about things, right? It's very difficult otherwise. And also, uh, very interesting aspect that I'll tell you, Vasanti. I mean, this is something which is what I've recently read about, right? There are two aspects or 2 points when actually we start growing, we stop growing, right? There is a phenomenon called as neuroplasticity. I don't know how many people would have understood this particular thing. So a human brain can actually grow uh, till we are 80 easily. I mean, that's it. Age is just a number, to be very honest, right? For a brain, it's an ageless kind of a scenario, right? But the moment we complete, let's say, education, that's where we stop learning. We start we don't learn new things. So that's where the brain stops growing. And the second is when we get retired, right? That these are the two junctures which are very, very crucial junctures in human life, if you ask me from a tech perspective, right? So this is the time for students. I mean, if you ask me what is the most amazing skill that they need to look at, is start learning more as you are getting over with your college and getting over with the degrees and things like that, right? Because this is the time where you can actually start shaping your brain in a very different fashion. Um, Till now, it was all regulated learning. Now is where you start getting into an arena of unregulated learning, and that's where your brain would start growing much faster, much bigger. And that needs to be looked at very seriously.
Amazing. So, I can sum up curiosity, creativity, your enthusiasm, all whatever the human body will, brain body will give you, that's the your asset in AI world, right? Okay.
Otherwise, you don't see. It's like. Uh, I mean, it's we need to definitely differentiate that whether do we want to be a robot, maybe an intellectual robot, or do we really want to be humans, right? To be humans, we need to think like human, be
Mhm.
human first. So being human comes from your ability to ask question, understand multiple aspects, be curious about things, be curious about stupid stuff in life, go behind it, be passionate. That's what is all about, right? Technology, if you ask me, do I know Python? The answer is no. But what is the likelihood that I can learn Python maybe in 3 months' time? It's absolutely possible, right? So that's something which can be acquired, or do I need to acquire it? The answer is probably not. But can I outsource my happiness? That's what we need to look at. Can I outsource being enthusiastic about a technology? Can I outsource being, curious about uh, any new aspect which is coming in, right? Can I ask GPT to be, let's say, be curious on my behalf and then, build something? It's not going to happen. So we need to look at what are the basic aspects, what makes us human, and if we start emphasizing those particular areas, it's going to be a very amazing journey.
Great. So, it is another question in another aspects. As you mentioned, everyone is depending on the GPTs, or they are outsourcing their intelligence to share the knowledge on social media or on public profile. They are outsourcing and they are publishing. It's the another criteria. So, what is the biggest risk when these people will be over dependent on the AI, and how they should avoid it?
As I mentioned, it's the biggest risk is becoming irrelevant. That's, I think, the most amazing. See, if you ask me, Vasanti, I'll be slightly blunt over here. Would I look at uh, and this that's true for me, but then going forward, it is going to be true for a lot of people. That will I be looking at academics and skills of an individual or a student, or will I look at the ability to solve a problem, right? I think the world would move more towards the second stream. It's the ability to solve a problem that will become more, or that will take the precedence in, because skills, I mean, let's say for example, if the problem can be solved in, be it in Python, be it in any other programming languages, there can be multiple algorithms. I would say that, okay, let the AI think about the algorithms and models, right? But let me put it across in a very different fashion. So what answer should I get is always there. I mean, the answers are always there in a LLM and a GPT world. What question do we need to ask is something that is very important, and that questioning ability to question would come from my ability to think of a problem in a very different fashion. And that's something which is very, very important. And I think that's the core essence of it. Otherwise, if I don't understand, so it's not the solution. I'll put across in a very different fashion as well. You know, it's not about the competency gap at times, right? Competencies can be built, but it's the complexity gap. If I don't understand and look at the complexities of a particular solution, and I'm able to think about that area, then there's a bigger problem, right? So it's not about whether I know a particular technology, whether I know a particular tool. All these things can be easily taken care of. What cannot be taken care of is, as I said, the ability to look at the problem, the ability to orchestrate things, right? So when you have an AI, you definitely are going to be requiring an orchestrator who can orchestrate the tool, who can look at the entire thing. I mean, think of maybe a harmony, orchestra, where there are, let's say, hundreds of instruments which are there, right? The person who's actually orchestrating every damn thing, right? Some when the drum should play, when the cello should play. Now the person who's actually instructing that is the person who's actually creating the harmony out of it. Rest of the things are just happening on its own, right? So uh, we need to look at, I mean, as students, as professionals, we need to look at that. How can we become those orchestrators? Because technology and tools are galore, and they're going to be increasing day after day after day. If we keep on running behind them, we will always be falling short of how much we know, right? But we need to understand that, okay, if I know something, why do I know that? And how can I use my knowledge in solving some problems in the human life, right? If I know those particular areas, I think uh, we will still be relevant in a longer run.
I can consider it's the masterpiece of advice throughout the communication. But again, I am representing the Internscope, and on behalf of all the students, definitely I will come the recruitment in your organization for the freshers. So, what qualities do you look when you hire the freshers? First of all, do you hire the freshers?
I
And
do. I love working with freshers. I definitely learn a lot from them at times. The energy is amazing. What I look at, again, three things, four things which I said, right? Whether the person is enthusiastic or not, whether the person is happy in his life or not, whether they are really wanting to build something which is crazy enough, right? Or they just want to get a stamp of working in an AI product, going into the next company, thinking of those particular aspects. See, that's something that needs to be changed. I mean, needs to change. And yeah, so when I look at hiring, especially a fresher, I would look at rather than the competence and the skills that the person has. I would always look at what is the kind of abilities that a student would have or a fresher would have, in terms of understanding a particular scenario, working out, finding out systems, finding out tools, finding out answers, their curiosity levels in terms of, and you can make out, Vasanti. I mean, I've been interviewing so many people, interacting with so many people. Uh, you can actually make out that somebody who's very enthusiastic, somebody who's not, right? And that's something which is what I look at essentially. Apart from these particular aspects, no, I don't think. See, something which there's something which is learnable, and there's something which is built inbuilt, right? I would always look at what are the activities and qualities that are built into a person, right? Rather than focusing on learnabilities, because that's something which can be done anytime.
great. Thank you for opening the opportunities in parenthesis system and you make AI also. So we invite you to publish your job post on Internscope and definitely open the door for the students also. Yeah, okay.